I think the most obvious thing to ask you first, since you mentioned, is that you are from Ukraine, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And so you were going to share what your experience has been like for the past year and some change, right? Because it's been pretty crazy, I imagine, to live over there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people just want to know what it's like from a regular citizen of Ukraine and not from the media itself, right? So I'm gonna just start that. I would divide my life in Ukraine during war into three periods. The first one is actually, I believe, the hardest one. When it all started on 24th of February. I remember it was like 5 a.m. and I woke up from an explosion outside my apartment building. And I remember vividly that I opened my eyes and I see my mother in front of me, waking me up. I lived with my mother at that time. She was trying to wake me up and she was like so freaking out and screaming like the war has started. And I don't understand what's happening. I just open up social media and I see tons and tons of videos of Russian vehicles rolling through Ukraine and heavy fightings taking place. Especially, I remember fightings in Kharkiv. It's just on the east of Ukraine. I remember my friend lived there and he has somehow managed to escape this place. It was hell back then. I think I remember the first week of it then when I stayed at home 3 days in a row with my mother. My father was absent at the time. He was in another country for work. I remember barricading our place to protect ourselves. I remember when we went to the store, bought some duct tape, protected windows in case a wave from an explosion would shatter our windows and those shots would hit us. In just 5 days, my mother totally freaks out and she says, I can't live here. And she asked me to drive to outside of the city where my grandparents lived. And I did that. We stayed there for 1 month when this was like the hardest part of the war, when you didn't know what's happening, really. You don't know if it's gonna be over in 2 or 3 months, like many of our government officials have stated, or it's gonna be a prolonged war. But exactly after 1 month, it was obvious it's not gonna be a short war, and the heated part of it ended. We came back to our apartment and lived there for a while.
Wow. Okay. So immediately a couple of questions jump out at me. Mm-hmm. One is, how would you say your daily life has changed since this has all begun?
It's really hard to me to answer because there's a lot of things that happened. I would say that my overall mood has changed a lot. Sometimes I feel nothing. No emotions. This war has been going for 1.5 years, and I've been exposed to many videos, news, footage, so a lot of bad things. And I think all of this really changed my mental health. When I see terrible things, I just don't get moved by them. I don't feel nothing. It's just like a really usual thing to me. You hear explosion outside, it's a regular thing right now. You're getting used to this life, and that's probably the scariest thing, because this war is going to be a long one. I think there's going to be like 3-4 years of it, and I'm used to it. But when it stops, how am I gonna get used to regular life before war? Because truth be told, I don't remember what it was like to live before war.
Right. Did you and your family consider packing up and leaving the country? Because I know many people went to Poland and Romania and other places like that.
Yeah, I remember when it started, like 8 million people just fled the country. There is one thing called martial law, and under the martial law of Ukraine, males aged 18 to 60 are not allowed to leave the country. So I'm here until it all ends.
Okay, I see. And so as a part of that, have you ever been called up for conscription?
Actually, yes, it was. I remember on the 10th of March 2022, when it was the most heated phase of war, I believe. It was actually 3 days before my birthday. I was 19 at that moment, and I remember a military office calling me up and saying, "Hey, you need to check our military office because we need you tomorrow at 8 a.m." And so I told my mother, I told my grandparents. They said they can do everything to keep me out of this because they didn't really want me to go to war. That's understandable.
Of course.
But I said, like, I don't want to escape this. I don't want to avoid it. I just want to go there and see what's going to happen next. So I drive there, I knock on the door, and they say, "You'll need to wait outside of the building." And I just did that for 1 hour maybe. We were standing outside of the building with other conscripts like me, but much older. I think I was the only young man there. I was 19 at the moment, but most men were like 30, 40. It was really cold, I remember. It's end of March, even snowed a little. I saw a lot of people really armed to their teeth. Some people even were packing to the front lines. I was just there waiting, not knowing what's going to happen next. And then they called me up to the mobilization office and asked for my age. I said I was 19, and they let me go, saying that I am too young for fighting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember going out of the building and calling my mother, calling my girlfriend. They were crying out of happiness that I don't go to this war and I'm gonna be alive for God knows how many months. There's a legal age when you can sign a contract with the armed forces of Ukraine, which is 21 years old, and I wasn't that age, so I wasn't eligible for that. I know a lot of people who went there and they were asked to sign the contract, but they refused and went home that day. So it was voluntarily.
Wow, that's interesting because I'm from the United States and I believe the draft is abolished here, but many people are just kind of culturally and mentally under the impression that when you turn 18, you can be drafted to war. And in Vietnam, lots of men, 18, sometimes even 17, were off to fight. And that must have been one of the greatest days of your life, I imagine, to know that you did not have to go, right?
Yeah, to get you the idea that all men aged, I remember at that time was 21 to 27 were eligible for conscription. It was mandatory for everyone. I was studying at the university. It didn't really threaten me that much. But when the war started, the government abolished this mandatory conscription, saying that it's impossible during wartime because you never know when the missiles are gonna hit the barracks and you'll just lose resource, right? Human resource. And now, if I want to go to the war, I'll need to either sign a contract with the government, it's minimum of 3 years, or a mobilization pact, meaning you'll be until the end of war. I will be eligible for conscription to train in the boot camp and go to war when I'm 25, I believe. But I don't know if the war is gonna be that long.
Right. After that moment, when you knew that you did not have to go, how did your mental state shift? Did you feel this overwhelming sense of happiness, or were you still kind of in this state of like, well, life still kind of sucks living over here?
It always sucked, really. I think, yeah, I felt a little bit of happiness when I told my relatives and girlfriend that I'm fine, everything is gonna be fine. But when I went out of the mobilization office, I felt nothing, like this preparation was wasted. And so I thought that it probably would be better for myself and my family, that I can support them while my father was absent.
Right, of course. So between that moment and now, because I assume this has been, at least a year at this point, what has your life looked like? Are you still able to work? Are you still able to go to the grocery store like a normal citizen, or how has war changed that?
After 1.5 year, people got used to this war, myself included. It's a regular thing to go to a grocery store, buy things, have a pleasant walk with your girlfriend, spend time watching movies. At home, you can really watch cinema in specialized places right now. But if we're talking about my experience, I'm always awaiting something bad to happen, because it happened before. I always remember the nights that I would wake up from the missile strike, go to the corridor, and wait this whole thing out. It was so frequent at the time that I got used to it too. Every time I hear a loud bang or something like this, I try to shelter myself. It especially affected my sleep, because now I can wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and just look at social media, see if what's up, if there's gonna be another missile strike or anything of the sort. Sometimes I may have mild panic attacks when it's, too quiet. I remember right now, it's been like 3 weeks since the last rocket strike, and it drives me crazy. I feel anxious all the time. It's gonna happen soon. I just don't know when, and this just kills me.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So as someone living there and experiencing it firsthand, because I didn't even consider that mental state of the panic attacks and the anxiety, what would you want someone like me living in the Western world to know about the situation? Because I think a lot of people don't grasp the severity or the life-altering circumstances that war puts you in.
Yeah, I think many people from the Western world don't realize that if they see a working McDonald's somewhere in Kiev, it doesn't mean war is over or war is fake. It is here. The front lines are really wide. People are dying every day. If you see a working McDonald's, it's because many people gave their lives for it to work, and many people to eat out there. Because you don't know, maybe one of these people who are eating a burger there might have lost someone.
Right. Because I thought about this a lot when I was making my talking videos over the past 6 months or so, and I can't recall exactly which ones I mentioned this in, but this idea of people, they have certain problems in their lives, your first world problems, like, oh, my internet is out, or this game recently released and it's buggy and terrible, this sucks. But then I think about people like you and people that are living in a war zone, and how ridiculous those problems sound to them, I'm sure, and how much worse your life can get, and how much people do not realize how much worse they can get. Would you say that you have developed a new appreciation for what is worth worrying about?
Yeah, like when I hear people having troubles, like you mentioned, with the internet or a video game, I try to tell them they shouldn't downgrade those problems. There are still problems, and they don't need to feel a shame because, well, maybe I feel a bit worse than them. But when you live here, when you experience all firsthand, when you hear everything explode and ruin around you, you just start appreciating every second of your life, because you never know when it's going to end. And just I try to avoid this feeling by trying to do things I did before war, like going to grab a coffee, watch a movie, play a video game with my friends, have a couple of drinks. And when I experience this, I feel much better, because these experiences, you value them much better than it was before.
And I think that's a really good point that you made, because I agree that it is also kind of futile when people punch down the totem pole of problems until it's like, oh, well, your life could always be worse. You could be starving in Africa, suck it up. And I'm glad that you say that just because of this situation that you should not feel bad for your situation because problems are problems. But I still wanted to bring that up because I just see it a lot where people, they create problems because their lives are so easy. The people who have the time to complain about video games on the internet don't realize how safe and comfortable their lives are. And, when you get placed in a situation like yours, I imagine that it very quickly shifts what is important to you and what is not.
There were really things I had to abolish for now that I really like doing. Like, I really enjoy walking down some forest or any other, where it's the air is clean, because I can do that. Well, there might be a landmine somewhere, and if I step on it, it's either game over for me or game over for my right or left leg. But sometimes, you feel so empty, you just do whatever you want, because you can take a walk around the critical infrastructure, a place where missiles usually land, and just don't care about it. If this happens, it happens.
Here's something I've thought about. You mentioned the thoughts of emptiness and not knowing when it's all going to end. And this may seem like an exercise in being naive, but if you could imagine when the war is going to end, do you ever have dreams or thoughts of what you intend to do again, or what you want to do with your life when this is all over?
I don't think I ever made plans this far, because you never know when it's going to end. Last summer they told us it's going to be over in 3 months, and now it's almost 2 years. But I really hope that when it all ends, I just can meet all my friends, relatives, and have a drink. Especially with the friends that are now fighting in the trenches.
Oh, so you have friends that have been conscripted?
Yes, I have 2 friends who were conscripted. No, not conscripted. 2 of them signed a contract with armed forces. One of them finished his training and now is fighting. My second friend, he enlisted at the beginning of this war. He fought 1.5 years, and sadly he drove on a anti-tank mine. He lost his leg, he lost his eye, but he is alive, and I hope he will be recovered soon.
All right, I'm sorry to hear that. When was the last time that you heard from your other friend?
You mean the first one, yeah?
Yeah, the first one.
Really recently. He came back after a 3-month boot camp to our city. We met up, discussed a lot of things, how it was going for him, and he said he is part of an assault group. Those guys who are going headfirst into the battle. You start appreciating him more because, well, it's really dangerous to be the head first in this scenario. He went to the positions, I think, 2 weeks ago. He's gonna come back soon enough, in a week, because he needs to file some paperwork here, and then he is off to the trenches for half a year maybe.
And that surely has created a newfound appreciation for your friendship, I imagine, right?
Yeah, it just, this person might just not live one day and you'll never see him again. And this creates a new bonding experience. You start appreciating his presence more, his jokes, his stories, memories. You had them all this time.
And also, seeing your friend go off might create a sense of like, well, I'm glad that that's not me, right? I'm glad that I get to stay home with my family.
You know what? I don't feel this way. For a long time, I felt like I am a healthy 21-year-old guy who can hold a gun, wear a heavy backpack, and help my friends out there. But I'm just staying here doing nothing, and it eats me alive, I need to be there to help them because they are suffering while I'm staying here, enjoying relatively peaceful life here, you know.
So it's almost a bit of guilt, is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm constantly thinking of dropping everything here and do something about it.
Well, I was about to ask, do you intend to join then?
Yeah, I think yeah. I'm just preparing for it. No, I've been on self-improvement since the last March of 2022. I started lifting heavy weights. You know, attend military exercises like shooting a gun or apply a tourniquet. And I'm thinking constantly that these skills will be much needed when I get there.
And did you say that you have to wait until you're 25, or can you do this now?
I can do this actually now. I just don't feel like I am prepared or my family is prepared to hear this news.
Yeah, I can only imagine what your mother would say to that.
They really disagree with my point of view. I try to reason with them, saying like, how can I stay here while everybody is giving up all of their peaceful life to fight? They're fighting not for nothing. They're fighting for us, right? So I think it is my duty to do the same for them because they guys in the trenches are really, really tired. They're fighting for over 1.5 years now. They need rest, and I'm maybe that guy that can take their place, let them rest, and you know they can come back fight with me.
Right. Well, if and when you do go off, I definitely hope that you come back to tell the tale and we could talk about your experience.
Oh, I sure hope. Look forward to that, you know.
Well, Alex, I've talked to only a handful of people so far, but I have to say that this has been one of the most eye-opening experiences. And to come on here and share your story is not only brave in wartime, but very enlightening. And from my perspective, living in the Western world, I can only imagine what you're going through. And I have nothing but respect for you coming on here and telling me about it.
Thank you. But the last thing that I would love to say, I hope you don't imagine what life here is, because I want you to have a peaceful life with your family, with your friends, and I hope you don't experience something like this ever in your life.
For me and you too. I hope that whatever you have to endure is short-lived and you come back so we can talk, because I don't want anything to happen to anyone, and no less someone that is willing to come on here and talk to me. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It really is helpful to me as well. I feel like I dropped a lot of weight from myself.
Well, thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.